No, it's slanted and it's round. I mean, I might be able to hold it, yeah. All right. I'll do it like this. Are we live? Good. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. Tell the people that are still outside to come in. Plenary is starting. My name is Lars Eggert. Hello. Why are you waving at me? Why? Oh, you're saying hi. Hi. It's good to see you all in person. This is not possible in Zoom, this mass waving. Wave at each other. Say hi to everybody. It's good to see all of you with your masks on. This is great. All of us want to get on planes at some point later in the week. Let's make that happen, please. I do not want to stay longer. My wife will kill me if the vacation doesn't happen next week. And you don't want to have a out-of-season opening up the chair. So my name is Lars Eggert. I'm the IETF chair, and this is a really hot mic, so I'm going to hold it down here. We have the usual sort of presentations about various updates from various bodies, and the usual open mic part at the end. I said that, please wear a mask. When you registered, you agreed to our COVID policy, which requires you to wear masks in IETF-controlled rooms. There's some details about what types of masks, because we are an engineering organization and we cannot just say masks. If you don't have one, the Secretariat has heaps and heaps in all colors, so you can like really match your outfit. Even Spencer can match his outfit, which is, I think, a little bit of a challenge. And the only exception, as you see, I don't wear one because I'm an active speaker, because I'm actively speaking, so I don't need to wear one. I'm not doing it because I think the audio quality is better that way. But when I'm sitting down, I will put one on, and if I don't, somebody will surely remember me and tell me. This is the Note Well. You've seen it many times. It's getting longer and longer, and the font is getting smaller and smaller. Basically, when you participate in the IETF, you agree to some obligations and policies. One of them for this meeting was about masks. There's other ones, such as disclosing IPR that you know about. You agree to be civil to others and follow the code of conduct and our anti-harassment procedures. You also agree to the IETF privacy policy. That means, you know, you might be photographed unless you wear one of these spiffy red lanyards, which tell the photographers to not bother you. If you haven't seen this, take a look. There's a lot of interesting stuff there that you might want to know. For those of you who are online, good day, good evening, good morning, good night, unfortunately, also for some of you. When you join, your audio will be muted and your video will be off. When you get in line to ask a question later on, I encourage you to show your video. It's nice to see your face. Also, to those of you in the room, please use the Meet Echo tool, either the full one or the light version, the on-site version, to get into the queue, so we have one line. And then, you know, when you get close, come to the microphone. If you can, from remote, use a headset. You can use one in the room, but really it doesn't serve any purpose. And there's a whole lot more about how Meet Echo works and how you optimize its use on that link on the bottom. Right, the agenda is as usual me saying welcome. We have a brief host update from Jason Livingood, followed by some brief words from the IETF, which actually say the ISG, I think, the IAB, the IRTF, the NOMCOM, the IETF LLC, the Trust. We have, unfortunately, a very brief in memoriam session for two participants who passed away. And then we have open mics, and this time the order is ISG, IAB, LLC. And with that, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Comcast and NBC Universal. Jason, are you here? Come on up. This is your applause. We have a badge. Every time the badge looks different. This time it's blue. And I'm glad to give this to you. Take good care of it. Find a nice spot wherever you can.
All right, awesome.
And I think you have a few words for us.
Yeah, just briefly, I never like these if they're long, so it's very quick. Thank you for coming. Welcome back to Philadelphia for the first time since IETF 71, so 2008. And I'll just make one quick mention. As a network operator, we have been, especially during the pandemic, noticed that latency is incredibly important, working latency or responsiveness. And there was an L4S part of the hackathon this week at the beginning of the meeting, and it was nicely attended. There were 15 companies participating and more than 30 people, and we really showed for the first time that low latency networking worked outside of the lab with multiple vendor equipment and software and so on. So we were very excited about that, and we are eager to get this out there for users on the internet in the future and make their internet connectivity even better. So that is it, shortest host presentation ever. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for leaving so much time for open mic. But also, seriously, thank you. We couldn't do these meetings without our sponsors, as you all know, and I think the LLC will have a few words later, but the host is always of a special case because they really do support the meeting beyond the usual support that you get for other things, and especially like you personally like added a lot of restaurant recommendations to the wiki, so thank you for that. I used them, they worked out well. And you're going above and beyond with making some progress towards getting people to see some art, I hear, which didn't quite work yesterday, so I know that you're very sorry for that, and they're already on the case, and I try to do something so you guys can see some art before you leave. So thank you again, highly appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else who made this meeting happen. The Secretariat, who is sort of also going above and beyond this time because they're pretty heavily hit with COVID. So if something isn't quite as smooth as it normally is, it's because they are like about a third of the people down compared to normal weeks. So there's a lot of people who are managers who are now doing on the ground work again. And it's, I guess, pretty exciting and exhilarating. And you guys get to your steps in every day, so that's good. Meet Echo provides the service for our online participation, and I think that's become a key part of what the IETF is these days. And we're very happy that we have a very robust remote participation facility that, together with the fee waivers, makes it possible for anybody to just join in and participate in IETF meetings. The NOC's doing the usual great job, also went above and beyond. The hotel had some challenges. I hear that cabling wasn't quite as good as it normally is, and the ability to pull cables was not made easy by the building itself. So thank you for that. You've been debugging since Monday, and I think it's gotten noticeably better already on Tuesday, and thank you for that. The LLC is the financial and legal home of the IETF tools team, together with the staff programmers, writing the data tracker and other tools we use to produce the RFCs and run the organization. Thank you to you. And the hackathon support team was great as usual, so thank you. Which brings me to the IETF chair report, which is, as usual, talk a little bit about participants. We have some statistics on COVID also, unfortunately, during this meeting. The plan for future meetings, going to talk a bit about running experiments, brief sort of preview of other things that is in our written report, which should already be online. Cindy's nodding, so it's available to you to dig down into the details, and there's a brief update from the tools team, which I don't think we actually have this time. So scratch that last bullet. We did a preview this morning. Nobody noticed that we needed more coffee. By the way, that coffee service is excellent, so thank you for arranging that. It's always been a queue, but I should have gone twice, is what I learned. The participant statistics. We have significantly more people on site compared to Vienna. In Vienna, we were around 300. We have more than double that on site. I think we also have more people remote. Keep on going, okay. So we have almost 1,400 people, which is actually a really good number. I'm very happy about that. Since we're doing fee waivers now, both for in-person and for remote attendance, I figured we include some data for you. So we did 276 fee waivers, and we granted 234 were used. For on-site fee waivers, Colin and I, as the IETF and IRTF chair, we have some at our discretion. Colin typically gets a few more because there's local academics that contact him to attend. He got 7 requests and granted 6, and I got 2 and I granted 1. FYI, that's available, but it's at our discretion. And you can send us email if you want to use one of those in the future. And we have 273 hackathon registrations, which is, I think, the usual solid number. I can't remember if it's, I think it's also a lot bigger than it had been in Vienna. And we had 223 on-site and 50 remote and doing 25 projects. This seems almost to be back at pre-pandemic levels. So that's really great. And unsurprisingly, the vast majority this time of participants comes from the US, and then the usual smattering of other countries and aimed countries. It's a bit unfortunate that China, such a small sliver this time. It's mostly because of travel and of time zones. You see on the next slide that if you break these out into on-site and remote participants, China is really sort of mostly participating remotely. Hopefully that'll change by London, which might be a bit easier to attend for them. It's closer. But yes, the US is heavily dominating the on-site participation, and also the remote participation has a pretty sizable fraction from the US. Thank you. All right. COVID cases. So as of today, we had 9 reported cases. And in Vienna, we had 9 reported cases for the entire week. So we're basically at about double-ish what we were in Vienna, which isn't necessarily surprising given that we're also twice the people, right? So it's actually a reasonably good number. Obviously, every case is one case too many, but you can never really go down to 0, unfortunately. And as I mentioned, the Secretariat unfortunately makes up a large fraction of those 9. So they're operating at a reduced capacity. There is free tests available, and they usually seem to be gone, so it's good that you guys use them. Keep using them. There's also free masks and sanitizer and Advil and whatever you want, right? And if you do get infected, test positive, or have symptoms, please go to your room and contact support@ietf.org, and they'll take care of you. Right. This is sort of a brief heads up that we're going to plan on asking you some questions in the post-meeting survey. Those of you who are chairs probably noticed this more than others, but we had way more requests for session time for 114 than we had session time available. And so the ISG made a difficult decision that we're going to limit all working groups to at most 2 hours of session time, which isn't great, right? There's many groups that could have used more time productively, and we cut their time. That's because when we went fully online, we had shorter days that made it easier for online people to participate. And we kept that as we went to hybrid meetings with in-person. So the days here are shorter than the days were at in-person meetings pre-pandemic. So that's where we are, right? The question is, what should we do going forward? Specifically, what should we do for hybrid meetings, right? And there's a few options, right? We do nothing, which means we keep the short days, but we also need to then cut session requests in some way or form. We could go back to longer days. One option would be to go back to the pre-pandemic schedule. I think if I remember correctly, that would have just about fit the request we got for 114. But it's obviously not great for remote participants because it makes the day longer. And Zoom fatigue is a thing. We could add a track, right? We tried that, I think, during one online meeting, but the downside is it causes conflicts because we have now 9 tracks in parallel instead of 8. And it also means that every individual session obviously gets a little bit fewer participants because there's one extra thing happening. Plus, we contracted hotels already quite some years out, and it's not clear whether all of them can support an additional track. So this is not without downsides either. And we could do a combination of the above or something else. And we want to hear from you what you think we should do. Ideally, in the post-meeting survey, if you have a brilliant idea as you sit here, you can bring it up later at open mic too. But I don't want to micro-engineer this here if we can avoid it. So email is good, survey input is good. We're running 2 experiments. One is a continuation of the RFC 8989 NOMCOM eligibility requirements experiment. That RFC defined 2 additional paths to become eligible for the NOMCOM in addition to the one that we had before, which is basically through meeting attendance. The additional paths are being in leadership of a working group or secretary, or being a document author. It also, for the participation-based path, made it such that online participation in fully online meetings counted. And that's good because otherwise we would have a much smaller pool for which to pull out nominees out than we had. But it ends now. And so we decided to run the experiment again with a small clarification, and that is that we're going to keep counting online participation in hybrid meetings towards establishing NOMCOM eligibility, because these are the meetings like in Vienna and now, and then probably London, which RFC 8989 doesn't specifically say, but it implies it. And there was a bug that the tools team found when they rolled in the participation stats for, I think, Vienna, because 8989 says that online participants need to at least show up in one session. So use MeetEcho to participate in at least one session during the week. This is sort of the equivalent of the in-person badge pickup, because we also take people out of the pool that registered for in-person, but the badge doesn't get picked up all week long. And there was a bug in how the data got merged, and that data got fixed and the calculation got rerun. So Rich is now running with good data, or has run with good data. And we have a BOF schedule experiment where we leave some extra time for ADs to work with BOF proponents on getting their BOF into shape. We made two announcements. The first one was related to the experiment that I just talked about. The second one is that we instructed the RPC to go ahead with archiving Auth48 communications in a public archive. And there are links to the email announcements if that's new to you and you want to look it up. We had no appeals, and we also had no ISC statements, and the two are not correlated. Yeah, you never know. And there's a lot more in the written reports. We purposefully keep these short. So if you're interested in more information, you can go to that link and to the presentations and write-ups that are linked from that URL. And there's a blog that Greg fills every week with new things, and he might hit you up to help him write a blog about whatever you're doing in the IETF. And if he does that, please help him out. Thank you. And that brings us to Mirja.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Mirja Kulevin. I'm the IB chair. It's great to see you all here. Welcome for the remote people from my side as well. And I only have a few slides as always, so I will be quick. Yes, I will only highlight a few things. If you want to know more about what the IAB is doing, there's a full report already uploaded. I just want to mention two quick things. We created two new administrative support groups. These are just small groups that help us to do our job and fulfill our responsibilities. One is about coordination between IETF and IEEE. This group always existed and now has a data tracker home. That's the difference, basically. And the other one is about IAB and ISOC policy coordination, which we want to just like make sure we are well aligned with ISOC. Yeah, one nice announcement is we're just sent out a call for organizing a workshop. This workshop will be about management techniques and encrypted networks. We want to learn in this workshop what are requirements in encrypted network and also for securing management that are actionable. So what are the things that we really can change in future, and who's willing to work on these solutions, and how could those solutions look like? And that's what we want to discuss about. If you have an idea and if you would like to be invited to the workshop, send us your position paper. More information is on the IAB website and the link you find here, and the position paper would go to us by email. This is the point where I would like to thank some of the volunteers in the community. The IAB selects a bunch of positions every time, every round, every cycle, and we depend heavily on you from this community volunteering for these positions. We had announced or appointed some well-qualified, good people, and we had like a good pool, but like sometimes we do have diversity problems, so we really depend on you putting your name in or you poking other people to put their name in. Especially I want to thank Victor for serving on the Board of Trustees, ISOC Board of Trustees, Vittorio for serving on the ICANN NOMCOM committee, Jim for the GWG, and then Tim is serving us on the CCG. Thank you to all of you. And as I just said, we're always looking for some candidates. We have 2 open calls for feedback. That's actually the lower point on the slide, and you can send us feedback about these. You find more information on the IAB webpage. But we're also looking for a new liaison manager for for a specific ISO group. This is always a little bit hard to find because we look for people who have like some experience in both groups. But effectively, actually here, I don't think you have to have too much ISO experience. You just have to be willing to learn to go there to interact with them. So if you have any interest, please contact us. And then this was already my last slide. This is like the exciting news we have this time, which is we're done with the RC editor model, version 3. It's up and running. The RC has been published. We have the RC series working group, and we have 2 chairs, thanks to Pete and Ecker. And there was already the first meeting on Monday. There's a mailing list you can subscribe. We have the RC series approval board nearly together. We're still looking for the new RC series consulting editor, but otherwise we already had a meeting on Monday, and there's also a mailing list that you can't subscribe to, but you can look at the archives if you're really interested. And like from the IAB side, we also closed both of the related groups here. One is the RSOC, which was previously having the oversight, and then the other one is a program that actually did all the work. So thanks, big thanks to everybody who was involved in making this happen, especially to the editor, Peter, and to the chairs of this program, Elliot and Brian. I brought some, but I can't throw very well. I bring them down to you.
We'll use this later on.
It's, yeah, right, the mask. Yeah, that's, Wes, take those. Don't misuse them, I trust you, right? Okay, that's it from my side, but I will stay here and run the slides for Colin.
Hi, thank you, Maria. I'm quite how I can follow that. Thank you. Next slide, please. Hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Next.
We can hear you very well. Do you have echo or anything? No.
No, it's all working.
Oh.
All right. All right, thank you. So, in addition to the research group, one of the things we organize in the IETF is the Applied Networking Research Prize. The ANRP is awarded for some of the best recent results in applied networking. It's awarded for interesting new research, which is of potential relevance to the internet standards community going forwards. And it's awarded to upcoming people that are likely to have an impact on internet standards and technologies going forward. This is organized by the IETF in conjunction with the Internet Society, and we're very grateful to Comcast and NBC Universal for the funding for that and sponsorship for this prize. Next slide, please. So I'm very pleased to announce that there were 2 ANRP prizes awarded at this meeting. In the talks were given in the IETF open meeting on Monday earlier this week. The awards for this week went to Tasha Swami, who gave a really nice talk on a system called Taurus, which is a data plane architecture for line rate inference and machine learning, and to Sam Kumar, who gave an excellent talk on optimizing TCP for low power wireless networks. I believe both Sam and Tusha are still at the meeting and should be there all week, so please do look out for them if you're there in person. And the recordings of their talks, there's teaser recordings available on the IETF website, and the full talks should be available on the IETF YouTube channel. Yeah, congratulations again to Tusha and to Sam. Next slide, please. In addition to this, look out for talks later this year at the London IETF by Gautam Akiwati, Corinne Kaff, and Daniel Wagner, who will be receiving the ANRP at the London meeting. And also, we're planning on opening the nominations for the 2023 awards in September this year. So please do look out for the call for nominations and nominate any interesting applied networking work which you're aware of for the awards next year. Next slide. In addition to the Applied Networking Research Prizes, we also organized the ANRW in conjunction with ACM SIGCOM. This workshop took place yesterday. I'd like to thank TJ Chung, Marwan Fayed, who were the workshop co-chairs, also the workshop program committee for all their efforts in putting this workshop together. We had four new research papers. Lucas gave a great keynote, and we had some really nice invited talks on novel approaches to protocol specification and some of the problems in specifying protocols. And again, look out for the recordings of those talks on the IETF's YouTube channel. We're planning on continuing this next year. The ANRW for next year will take place in San Francisco, co-locating with IETF 117. Next slide. And finally, I would like to thank the sponsors for the travel grants. We're very pleased to offer travel grants to support early career academics and PhD students from underrepresented groups to attend the IRTF meetings, co-locating with the IETF. We're also very pleased to offer travel grants for PhD students to attend the Applied Networking Research Workshop. The link on the slide here points to the details of how to apply for those grants. As I say, we're very grateful to Akamai, to Comcast, to Cloudflare, and to Netflix for their sponsorship of these travel grants. If you would like to help sponsor these travel grants, we're looking to expand these programs. I think these are really important for bringing new people in. So please do contact me if excuse me, please do contact me if you're willing to sponsor these grants in future. With that, that's all I have. Thank you very much. And over to, I guess it's Rich. Thank you.
Hi. How do I get the next page? Click. How do I get the next page?
That is a good question. It should be this one. It's cunningly not visible.
Okay, so I'm the new incoming non-com chair. We're running a bit behind. So what we're going to try to do to speed things up, these are the people who volunteered. Are there any objections? Thanks. I sent my son the YouTube link and he says, believe it or not, this is not the most boring Zoom meeting I've ever been in. Okay. Yeah. Took some notes. Actually, of interest, there are over 270 volunteers, which is probably not a record, but it's really pretty high. So thank everyone who volunteered. We're going to try to make up the time. Jump too far. Yeah, but now I need to get to the right stage. There we go. There's a page missing, but all right. Okay, so we're running behind. I do want to thank the Secretariat for all their help. They're the only people involved in this process who've been through it more than everybody else put together. So as soon as I was announced, I got a bunch of mail with a whole bunch of links and tools, most of which I now understand. And also the tools team, in particular, Robert Sparks. Lars talked about how the data tracker, pardon me, algorithms were fixed and updated. And anytime somebody said, "Oh, I didn't mean to volunteer," we almost as quick as I could ask him to remove them from the list, they did. So thank you, Robert. Calendar, the volunteering is closed, as I had said, closed Saturday morning. Planning on picking the committee next Wednesday. Monday or Tuesday, I'll send out the reference code for the 3713, I think. Then we'll have a flurry of NOMCOM meetings over that next month. One of the things we need to, after the committee's picked, there's a 2-week challenge period as spec'd in the RFC. By the end of next week, everyone, LLC, Trust, IESG, so on, will need to, IAB, will need to give me their position descriptions so that if somebody reads the description and says, "Oh, it's a lot easier to be an area director than to be on NOMCOM, so please disqualify me." We want to be able to handle that. So I'll be sending out mail to remind people. We're going to have a flurry of NOMCOM meetings next month. Normally, in the normal sequence of events, we'd be having a bunch of meetings in person during this IETF, this IETF. But obviously with COVID and the hybrid meetings, we got to a late start. We're not going to have in-person meetings. So we're going to have a whole bunch of online meetings, virtual meetings after the committee is picked, which is basically 3 weeks from now. I think we'll be able to make up that late start. Should be able to follow the standard procedures and timelines that are listed, for example, in the appendix of the NOMCOM procedures RFC within a couple of weeks. But it's going to be, some rushing to catch up. How we meet, where we meet, as I said, it's all virtual. The logistics of that are unclear. It will all depend on the geographic distribution of the committee members. If everyone ends up in Eastern time zone, you probably want to look at me with suspicion, but it'll be really convenient. Positions open. I did send out mail just before the IETF. But first, the liaisons. The liaisons are a number of them from most of the affected bodies, like the NOMCOM chair, me. They don't vote on the who is picked, but they vote, like me, on everything else. So the IAB is Cullen, the IESG Martin Duke, the LLC is Jason, the IETF Trust is Kathleen Moriarty. And then NOMCOM is my predecessor, Gabe Montenegro, who I've already had a couple of meetings with to talk about how it goes. The open positions and the job descriptions, I sent out a tentative list of what the open positions are. I think the IAB had a lot of question marks, but the people have qualified what they're planning. There'll be a mail in the IETF announced mailing list and also on the NOMCOM data tracker pages. So look for that the week after the IETF. Thank you.
So next up we have the LLC. That's a 2-part presentation. First part's going to be given by Greg Wood and the second part by Jason Livingood, as far as I know.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Greg Wood with the IETF LLC. Yeah, just a quick update on some of the details about how this meeting came together and some details about future meetings. Okay. First of all, of course. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. First, of course, thanks to our co-hosts, Comcast and NBC Universal. Lars mentioned a few things, the social event last night, which I thought was great. And I just want to say that there's really close coordination between the host and we as staff and the secretariat in planning the meeting, and we're always looking for new ways to make the meeting experience better. And Lars mentioned this as well. You may have noticed that we had coffee service, which was, I thought, really, really nice. So this is just one of the ways that we look to make the meeting experience better with hosts. So thanks again to Comcast and NBC Universal. We also rely on other kinds of sponsors. Of course, the networking experience here, it depends on contributions by Cisco and Juniper and overall WebEx we use in making the IETF work. So thanks to each of them for their contributions to the IETF. Also, in the last couple of years, we've had new kinds of sponsorships. Akamai and Cisco are gold level diversity and inclusion sponsors, and that kind of support allows us to do new things around meetings as well. So one of the things that we've just started at this meeting is providing some childcare for people who may not be able to participate or not as easily participate if they didn't have childcare to allow them to fully engage in the meeting process. And these are just a few quotes from folks who took advantage of it this meeting. We're planning to set something up like this again for 115. So if you have ideas about how to support it or how it can be arranged, but especially if you are the company you work for want to support it, please just email either sponsorship@ietf.org for the support or support@ietf.org, and it'd be great to get those expressions of interest. Another area for sponsorship is, and very excited to announce the very first sustainability sponsorship, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So that is an entirely new area of support for the IETF activities, and you may have read on the blog, thanks for the plug, Lars, about the blog earlier, effort that we're taking to understand what the carbon footprint is of IETF activities and how we might offset them. So expect more news about that later, and thanks again to Oracle for the support. We also have other sponsors in these various areas, and you can see them here, Huawei and again, Comcast and VeriSign and CNNIC, and as well as connectivity sponsors for this meeting. So thanks to each of them. In addition to the organizational level support for sponsors, we also have a lot of individuals that contribute to making the IETF work better. The Code Sprint, and you can read the names here, each of them participated on the Code Sprint on Saturday to improve the tools that probably all of you use in your work at the IETF. So there have been a lot of really great developments in that area, no pun intended. And also the NOC, which helps make the IETF network here at IETF meetings run. And especially thanks to each of them, each of their home organizations, because it does require a lot of time and effort, and probably not possible without support from the organizations. Finally, these are the Secretariat and the NOC staff, MEDICO staff, the tools team, and LLC staff, of which I'm a member. And I think we have a really great team. We all work together to pull the various bits of meeting planning and executing on that plan that we have here this week. Here's a slide with pictures so that you can pick us out. Just imagine masks in front of most of those for those of us who are on site. But yeah, so this is the team that we have on the LLC staff at the moment, led of course by Jay Daly, who's our executive director. And sort of now shifting to looking forward, we have amazing ongoing support from global hosts and global supporters. So these are companies that have committed to larger or multi-year support for the IETF and its meetings. And really, they provide a level of stability that really helps us in making future plans work smoothly. And to that end, we have IETF 115, which is the next meeting. I know we're started right in the middle of 114, but of course the team working on meetings works several years ahead. So we're already looking forward to 115. It'll be in London. See the dates. There are sponsorship opportunities still available. So again, feel free to send an email to sponsorship@ietf.org and be happy to start a conversation about that opportunity. Also, I'm really excited to announce that we have a location. Yes, right. Yeah, thanks. To WIDE really for being a host there, and it made it possible for us to go back to Yokohama, where I know we've had very productive and successful meetings in the past, and it's great to have that, be able to announce that today. And I know you'll be hearing more about that in the next few weeks. This is a very detailed and tiny and probably illegible or hard to read anyway in the room graph, but you can find this information on the website as well. So these are all the dates and venues and locations that we have nailed down. There are still some open ones. So in terms of hosts, so again, opportunities there. Feel free to reach out. And this is just, Lars went into a lot of detail, so I won't go into a lot of detail here, but these are just the registration numbers and for this meeting so far. I think this is finally, I just want to talk a little bit about the IETF endowment. Just as a reminder, this was created to support the IETF in its activities. You can read here what its goal for, what it's about, and what the goal is for it. And you can go to that URL for more information. Real quickly, there is a matching opportunity here. So last year, the Internet Society pledged a match for contributions. So we're in a window where there's really great opportunity. And in addition to our flagship donors like Aaron and the Internet Society and RIPE and also LACNIC, individual contributions are also matched. So if you are thinking you want to support the IETF and want to make the most out of that contribution, the IETF endowment is a really great thing to consider. And again, if you go to that URL on the previous page, you can find out how to do that real easily online. And I think with that, I hand it over to Jason.
Great, thank you. So this is the LLC board part of the presentation. These are current board members. I think at some point we should probably update our photos. These are all like pre-pandemic, so lots changed. And next slide. So we have some upcoming board meetings. These are always on our website. The only note here is in August, we've just learned that we have a bunch of board members on vacation, so we may not have quorum. That one may get rescheduled, or we may just cancel it until the September meeting. But anyone is welcome to participate. We always have very low attendance. So if you would like to ask a question or dive into a deeper part of some issue, please do join. We would love to have you. So what are some of the current things that board's working on? One of the primary things is obviously the shift from fully remote during the pandemic to now hybrid. And so we really spent some time with the Secretariat and the Executive Director looking at what the lessons learned were from Vienna, and then trying to apply those here to 114. And I think we've done a great job, especially the Secretariat. The employment location for Jay, our Executive Director, shifted from New Zealand to the United Kingdom as he moved to the Greater London area. These are one of those things that sounds small but is insanely complicated because of all the different tax and retirement and currency exchange types of complications. We also had our annual strategic planning retreat and went over a bunch of issues. Those minutes are all published, so you can see what we talked about. We have been placing a lot of focus now that we have Lee Berkeley on board on the fundraising progress, and this is a key area of focus. We have a wonderful matching program courtesy of ISOC, and so are focused a lot on seeing some real progress there. Finally, or not finally, excuse me, next, we also updated our investment policy earlier in the year. And so we started executing on those things and making some changes. Despite the market conditions, we've had over the past few years, we ended up making a lot of those decisions after one of the recent dips. So, somewhat good timing, but I think that's more by chance than anything else. Certainly not our plan or something like this, just based on the execution of those things. And we're working with new auditors on the annual audit. This is taking longer than expected. Every few years, it's a good practice to shift from one auditor to another so that they bring a different perspective. ISOC recently changed theirs, recommended a new one for us, so we've been following that, and we hope to have that audit published very, very soon. And we know our partners that are ISOC are eager for that as well. And then finally, we did provide some feedback to the IETF Trust on their restructuring consultation, and we published that in at least one of our recent meeting minutes, so you can see exactly what we had sent to them in their process. Now on to budget. There continues to be considerable uncertainty in our operating model, primarily because it's very hard to predict how many people will want to or be able to come to a meeting. And so the registration numbers or the revenues are heavily driven by attendance. And so there's uncertainty around this. And we've also found that, I'm sure as you have for traveling here, that the cost to travel has risen as well post-pandemic. And so all of those costs show up in our bottom line as well. And so we're working through that uncertainty. We're hoping that as the budget for next year gets developed later this year, that maybe we have a little bit better sense of it. But unfortunately, we are all subject to the sort of whims of what's happening with the coronavirus, the availability of travel companies, the pricing of hotel rooms, and so on. And we have a bunch of knock-on effects. So when we have lower numbers of room bookings, we get lower sort of meeting fees back from hotels, and so it's sort of a bunch of different things. And then the primary thing is really the investment loss. Now, the good news here, such as it is, I suppose, is that we lost less than the average market participant. So I guess that's a good thing. Our balanced investment strategy paid off and preserved a great deal of capital. But again, we also had these sort of a couple of random things that happened. The first was that the first tranche of investments that we made when we turned the cash we had from ISOC and put that into investments in the market happened immediately after the first stock market dip as the pandemic occurred. So that was like good timing number one. Good timing number two was the recent decision to make some shifts that was also beneficial. But we're doing as well as we can, and I wish my 401k was doing as well as our investments here. It'd probably be a welcome thing for my family. And during open mic, by the way, Sean, our treasurer, is obviously here in person and is happy to take detailed questions. Our background information, contact information is here, and feel free to reach out to us. We certainly encourage that. And that is all. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you in Q&A. Yep.
Next up is Joel Halpern for the Trust.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you. I'm Joel Halpern here on behalf of the Trust. We're here to stay out of your way, but sometimes we can't quite do it that well. So the Trust, this is what the Trust is here to do. We manage the IP assets, the intellectual property assets of the IETF and related. Well, because related is we have some things for IANA and trademarks. So we keep track of the trademarks and make sure they're registered and protected. We hold the copyrights for the IETF, for the RFCs. We do so according to the rules that were laid out by the IETF to make sure the IETF can do its job. That's what we're here to do. And we don't hold any patents, and we don't want to hold any patents. That's not our job. We also, for the LLC, hold the licenses for software that they need because we hold all of the intellectual property. That's who we are, and if you have questions about these things, please use the contact information at the end. This is the current trust list. Glenn Dean is our chair. He would be up here, but he couldn't be here this time. Kathleen Moriarty is our treasurer. I'm a member, Stefan Wegnar, and Victor Kursa. Victor, as you saw, was appointed to the ISOC board of directors, and ISOC said, hey, you understand these folks, and sent him to help us, which we very much appreciate. So thank you, Victor. Right here, he's started a 2-year term, and we very much appreciate his assistance and participation. And then you may have noticed a small change from previous years. John Levine has served for quite a number of years on the trust and is stepping off now somewhere there. John, I can see you. Please come up here. There's a separate plaque that'll get mailed to you, but they've asked me to hold this one up for now. There is a plaque for you to thank you for your service, because we really do appreciate it. Oh, good. Well, you know we appreciate it. In fact, we got a hat special for you.
Wow.
As far as we know, the only one in existence.
It goes with my IETF mask.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. So the question is, has the trust done anything you guys care about? You have heard probably repeatedly, we talked about it at the last plenary, and we did hold a consultation to the community about it. We've been trying to restructure to fix a historical artifact. Historically, the trust is set up literally as a trust in Virginia, and that causes a number of problems. And we wanted to restructure as a Delaware nonprofit corporation, still called the IETF Trust. We don't want to have to go fix all the documents that talk about the IETF Trust, so we've checked and we think legally we can still be called the IETF Trust and just be a Delaware nonprofit corporation. We brought in a separate set of lawyers who were in a good position to help us with this, and we held a community consultation on this. There is all the material that was available on the links, so you can go look at it. If you still have questions about why we're doing it, please get in touch. We very much appreciated the folks who joined the WebEx and who sent questions on email, and even the feedback from the LLC. We appreciate everybody's comments. We have concluded that consultation. Whoops, I was right there. We're still on this slide. And we have put out an email that says, yes, as far as we can tell, this is still the right thing to do, and we're going to go ahead and do it. And unless somebody tells us something we completely missed, probably next week we'll actually tell the lawyers, go file the paperwork. But I mean, if we've missed something, tell us. But we really, because our job is to make things work for you. As I said, we really want to be out of your way. We're just supposed to make things work. One interesting thing that was brought to us first by staff, but has now started coming up from other parts of the community, are these IETF supporter and protocol badges. These little badges that people want to be able to use on web pages or on other things to say, I support this activity, or I support the IETF. And we worked with our lawyers on what is the licensing we can do to make this available as minimally invasive as possible. So see the website for the exact terms, but there are these now licenses that can be, these badges that can be used to say, I support Quick, or I support the IETF. They're doing another one, I think, for L4S that they've asked us to approve, and we're working with them to get the final details on that one sorted out. So we're happy to do this, and we hold the copyright so that there's no question about where they live. And that way we publish the licensing information for it. And those are the links for contacting us. And I'll be here for the rest of the week. So, and most of the trustees are here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel. This is the sad part of this plenary, because we had two longtime community members who've been longtime participants and really drove different parts of internet technology pass away in recent months. I think both of them since IETF 113 in Vienna. And I asked two people who knew them very well to say a few words. So first, we're going to have a video from Nathaniel Bornstein, who's going to talk about his friend Ned Fried.
It would be reasonable for me to talk about Ned Fried and mention only his contributions to the IETF, IAB, IESG, and IANA, and particularly his 50 RFCs. But while Ned and I are best known as partners in MIME, what I treasure more than the results of our collaboration is that we worked together for years without a single argument. Hard to believe. One or two aspects of MIME embarrass me to this day, but we were even united in our mistakes. Or at least I thought so, but Ned was honestly so pragmatic and sunny and smooth that he might have won arguments I never knew we were having. I think he was a perfect fit for IETF work. Ned and I both shared an interest in how internet technology might help the disabled. That's one of the reasons we have multi-part alternative. A few years after MIME, I got to tell him that at the launch of my startup, First Virtual, almost nobody knew that our entire email-based help department was a brilliant young quadriplegic man, John Ferguson. Ned always smiled easily, but when he heard that, he looked as happy as the father of a newborn. Then in later years, when his own health precluded travel, he chose to eat the IETF's dog food. He proved to early skeptics, even within our community, that our technology allows a great mind to be a leader from thousands of miles away. Ned Fried helped design and build a world where great minds can transcend limited bodies, and then he demonstrated it. Rest in peace, old friend.
Give us a moment while we reshare the slide deck. We have too many slides.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, this participant who passed away recently was Stephen Kasner, and Eve Schuler is online to talk about her collaboration with Stephen. Eve, go ahead.
Thanks so much. Thanks for this opportunity to say a few words about Steve. He was a longtime friend, colleague, and mentor to many of us within the IETF community. And for those of you who may not have had the pleasure of knowing Steve directly, his vision and leadership were instrumental to the success of IETF multimedia standards and protocols that have driven the success of IP-based telephony and multimedia conferencing, as well as other real-time multicast and unicast applications. He began that journey at Occidental College, graduating in 1973 with a degree in mathematics and then obtaining a master's in computer science from USC in 1976. But beginning in 1974, he joined USC's Information Sciences Institute, and he contributed to the design and implementation of the earliest experiments with packet voice on the ARPANET, and thus contributed to the publication of the Network Voice Protocol, RFC 741, published in 1977. That's a year before the TCP/IP split and a year before UDP was defined. As higher bandwidth packet satellite and terrestrial networks became operational in the 1980s, he led the project at ISI to develop and deploy packet video over those networks. And And Steve's first participation in IETF meetings was documented as being 1988, attending IETF number 11. And as many of you may recall, his lovely wife of 40 years, Karen Kastner, often attended IETF meetings with him. Steve went on to found the Audio Video Transport Working Group, AVT, and served as its chair from 1991 until 2003. He authored 15 RFCs, and in particular was an author and the principal editor of the Real-Time Transport Protocol, RTP, specification. Beginning in 1992, he was the primary organizer of the movement to establish the MBONE, an experimental virtual network overlaying the internet for broadcast of audio video using multicast IP and RTP-based applications. It enabled live streaming of IETF meetings, including return audio from remote participants, and in many ways was the precursor to our hybrid MeetEcho meetings, as well as the multitude of video conferencing apps in our lives today. The MBONE also carried the first internet radio broadcasts, provided audio chat rooms for network geeks, streamed NASA TV of the first Hubble repair, broadcasted a Rolling Stones concert, resulting in a Newsweek article boldly displaying Steve Van Jacobson and Steve Deering as our modern day superheroes, and demonstrating the first distributed music performance with distributed performers at the ACM Multimedia 94 conference. In 1995, Steve took his expertise into the commercial arena to further develop conferencing and streaming applications at Precept Software, later acquired by Cisco in 1998, where he was a distinguished engineer. And from 2000 until retiring in 2014, he shifted gears to work on network performance measurement and routing analysis as a fellow at Packet Design. In retirement, he continued to work on various projects, such as volunteering for the Computer History Museum to produce an operational emulation of the 1960s era IBM 1620 computer, the room-sized computer where he first got his start in coding as an undergrad at Oxy. As a brilliant engineer, Steve also enjoyed sharing his creations with others, one of the more unique ones being his solid-state digital Monopoly game that he first showcased at the PC Festival in Anaheim in 1978. Steve also was an early adopter of electric vehicle technology. Not surprisingly, he enjoyed helping debug the early Tesla Roadster model before it was even released to the public. For those of you who had the privilege to work with Steve, you know firsthand that he had an encyclopedic knowledge about anything and everything with which he became involved, and he enjoyed being a keeper of the prehistory of the internet's evolution towards packet audio and video. His attention to detail was unrivaled by anyone I have ever met, and his meticulousness motivated those of us lucky enough to collaborate with him to bring our best selves to the tasks at hand. In addition to his wisdom, Steve was the consummate role model for quiet leadership, humility, and kindness. Steve passed away on the morning of July 4th, 2022, an auspicious date in the US, celebrated as Independence Day. And I couldn't help but imagine when the fireworks began in the evening, that the fireworks were celebrating Steve's life, all that he accomplished and all the people whose lives he touched. I want to close by paraphrasing some wise words penned by Colin Perkins when he nominated Steve for the Internet Award, and I quote, "Steve has long provided an example of how an IETF working group chair should act with humility and fairness while building on a deep understanding of the underlying technology and systems architecture. He saw consensus where none seemed possible, and he would patiently listen to all sides of an argument, identify concerns and correct misunderstandings of the architecture, then quietly, carefully, respectfully help the working group come to consensus," end quote. In conclusion, and to echo the sentiments of the many people who reached out to me after my posting to the IETF list about Steve's passing, it was truly a gift to have worked with him. Steve, you will be sorely missed. For those of you who might wish to send condolences to his family, to know further details about the memorial to be held in August, or to donate to the endowed chair in CS that he and Karen seated with the honorarium from the IEEE Award, and that was established for the newly created CS department at his alma mater, please reach out to me. And thank you again for giving me this time.
Thank you. Oops. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Stephen and Ned. Thank you. Shifting gears, it's time for open mic. As the ISG makes their way to the stage, please remember that if you want to ask questions, to use the Meet Echo queue, from which I'm going to remove Eve now, if I can find the button. But first, since we have the opportunity to have many ADs in person, we're going to go down the podium and introduce ourselves. Since I'm standing, I'm going to start with myself. I'm Lars Egger, I chair the IETF, and I chair the ISG. Martin, or Eric, let's start down there.
Eric Klein, NTD. Martin Duke, Transport.
Roman Danilius, Security.
Jahid John Shaka, Transport AD.
Andrew Wolston, Routing AD.
Warren Kamari, Ops.
John Scudder, Routing.
Representing applications in real time for Francesca Palambini, I am Murray Smith.
Yes, Lars Egger, Gen AD chair.
Eric Wenk, Inc.
Rob Wilton, Ops Management.
Mia Kulevind, IB Chair.
Paul Valkos, Security AD.
Alvaro Natana, Routing AD.
Okay, that's us. And the queue looks empty from up here. Oh, there's someone online. Adrian, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, maybe not. Thank you, Adrian Farrell. I'm very appreciative of the work that the ISG does, and I know what's involved and how much effort there is. I'm also definitely not pointing fingers here, but I suppose if the hat fits, wear it. Does the ISG have a reasonable expectation for how long it should take, absent exceptional circumstances and vacations and unresponsive authors and so on, for a document to move from publication request to IETF last call? If so, what does the ISG do to monitor that and move documents along? And if not, would the ISG like to consider setting the expectations of the community?
Thanks for the question, Adrian. So the ISG is monitoring this, but as you might imagine, or as you know from first-hand experience, the load is somewhat bursty and also differs quite a bit between the areas. And so it's more of a question for how does individual areas, how do they manage their queue? And for routing, for example, right, we added a while ago a third area director to help with the processing of the documents because routing had quite a burst come for several years. The data tracker is a good tool. So each AD, as you probably know, has a dashboard where they can keep track of which documents are in which state. And at the code sprint earlier on Saturday, Taro Kivinen actually works on giving an aggregated view both to the ISG internally, but also to the public, where you can see ISG-wide stats on how the document queue is progressing. So I don't have a firm answer for you. I know the data tracker has some aspirational dates, but they're not per area, and they're also somewhat outdated. I would expect that, I think I remember that without looking it up, I think we said it's about a week or two for AD review. Then it's the last call, which is typically 2 weeks. It might take another week or two to get it on the ballot. And then it's a question of how long, if any discussions happen, they take to resolve. And that's probably the most variable factor. So it can take several weeks to get it moving onwards, or it can take a lot longer. Warren.
So I'll just add, thank you for not pointing any fingers. And I don't have any more concrete answers than what Lars replied, except to say that I think that your questions are good questions, and that they're ones that I think that we will take up amongst ourselves and perhaps have some more concrete answers at some point in the future after we've had a chance to discuss. And thank you for asking.
Yeah, and I think actually there is something in the data track which is sort of an aspirational thing of like 14 days or something. But I know sometimes a document arrives and it's possible to miss the email. So, if something ends up anywhere ever stuck in the process, it never hurts to just drop the AD a note being like, just wanted to make sure. For example, I had a document a couple of weeks ago, which somehow completely fell through the cracks, and I just didn't notice it was sitting. I hadn't seen it for like 3 weeks till somebody poked me. And, sometimes things do just slip.
Okay. So there is also, when we do an AD review, right, we basically ask the authors to make a revised. It takes time as well, right? So it's not only there. And sometimes as well, it depends to me for ADD and DRIP. I want to make a cluster of documents because they make reference to each other. So it makes easier for the ISG to review them together and for the authors to change it up together as well. So sometimes there are delays like this. But you're right, it should be short.
So thank you. Maybe put notes in the history tab when you know that there's something, so that people can look and see what's going on.
Yep, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. No one else? Anybody remote looking for the button still?
Come on, we walked all the way up there. There must be some questions.
Yeah, please, some question for Warren. Oh, your wish got granted. David, go ahead.
This won't end well.
David Skenazy. I see I have a reputation. Warren, what did you think of the cookies this week?
I think that the chocolate ones were really big, but kind of soft, and actually they were kind of difficult to eat because like the white and the brown chocolate would come out. So other than that, and it would also be good if there were some that were like oatmeal raisin.
There were actually some oatmeal raisins one today that were pretty good.
Really? I guess you ate them all then, didn't you?
Sorry. Thank you, Warren.
So I was going to say if there's nobody else, we have enough time for the IAB to get a lot of questions, but Rich is in the queue, so go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, sure. I know a bunch of you are either aging out or want to get out. Is there anything the community can do to help you look for incoming volunteers to take your position?
Actually, I was
Idle
hoping,
question.
yeah, I was hoping somebody would mention something about that. I mean, I know I would be very happy to chat with anybody who's in any way interested in running for Ops AD. I think it's fun. And it's really interesting. If anybody is in any way interested, please come and chat with me. I will be around, drop me email, etc. And I'm assuming that most other ADs have a similar view. Talk to them about Ops AD as well.
Yeah, I mean, to reiterate what Warren said, we've talked about this at the retreat and thinking about pipeline. Thank you for the question. We welcome the community to come to engage us. What I'd probably say is the areas are both similar and kind of different, and so there's commonality of the role and there's differences in the role. So probably approaching in the area you're interested in is the place to start. Certainly in security, we welcome engagement. Thanks.
Yeah,
And the same goes for the transport area, of course. And Warren and Roman have said enough. I don't need to remind you guys, but yeah, please come and talk with us.
And I think I just add that a common fear is often about the time commitment, and there certainly is a time commitment. It is not something to do in the margins of your job, but at the same time, it is kind of what you make it, and it can expand and contract to the time you have available. So please don't let that be a barrier, and please talk to somebody before you dismiss the possibility on that basis.
And it's not sort of so visible to the community, but most ADs actually actively worry about succession and building a leadership pipeline, basically when they start a job, right? Because you do want to be able to leave it with somebody who can continue the work. And so this sort of basically, we even the new incoming ADs, right? That was a discussion we had pretty early on in March or April. Like, how do you do this? And so when they reiterate, if there's anybody who's interested in serving on any of these bodies, frankly, not just the ISG, but also IB or LLC, talk to the people who is currently sitting, and then we're more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Please do so. We got to give NomCom a good slate to select from.
And I mean, also, include questions like, how did you manage to convince your employer to support you, which is one of the common problems I hear. Things like that, sort of when you got appointed, how did you make it so management would support you, which were the good bits, etc.
I was just going to add one general comment, being up here, to say that although the job is challenging, it is also very rewarding. So if you're considering doing this, I would definitely try and encourage anyone to give it a go and apply. So that's my view.
All right, Torles. Is Torles remote or in person?
No, sorry, I'm remote right now. The unmute button was hard to find. When it comes to the leadership, there was also, I think, last time the question raised about the working group chairs and some observations being made about old duplicate, triple, quadruple working group chairs. Was that topic ever gotten to a point where the ISG had some opinions or thoughts on this?
So I don't think the ISG has discussed this at the ISG level. I think individual areas are sort of constantly looking at what chairpersonships their groups need, and that there's another leadership pipeline that needs to be maintained and built, right? So are you do you have specific concerns about some working groups? Are you saying that we have too many chairs for some or too few?
No, I think if I remember correctly, one of the concerns raised was that we have several cases of individuals serving on, I think up to 4 working groups, and that might be an opportunity, instead of just waiting for, somebody to fully expire, to broaden the basis by bringing more young blood in.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying. I misunderstood your question initially. So yeah, we did actually discuss this sort of, it's not really a problem, but this sort of case where you have chairs that serve for a long time, sometimes decades, because it does sort of, in a certain technology area, quote unquote, block the ability for somebody new to rise up, right? And we didn't really conclude ISG-wide. I personally decided that whenever we recharter something, I just bug the rechartering AD and say, hey, would this be a good time to roll in some new chairs? And then we have a discussion. So I choose to handle it that way. But each AD does something individually.
Yeah, and I wasn't specifically talking about the length of time in a position, but just the accumulation of roles.
So yeah, actually in ops, I've been trying fairly hard to find a third chair for many of the working groups, largely so we can bring in somebody who hasn't chaired before, or somebody who's somewhat newer to the IETF to serve as a third chair, gain some experience, sort of see how it goes, and then maybe they transition into being one of the 2 other chairs.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I make myself clear. I was talking about specifically the overload of persons by having to chair up to 4 working groups. That was the concern that was originally brought up.
Yeah. And I mean, I do hear that concern. Sometimes it's just hard to find people who are willing to chair certain working groups as well, as a separate note.
Eric?
And let me add to that. We've done this repeatedly over the last couple of days. We really always are looking for people to take on new active roles. So even if you're a newcomer, if you're interested in chairing, if you're interested in becoming a document shepherd, we really need those people, and we're really happy to help, especially new people integrating and becoming part of it. And the more new people we get, the more we can avoid having chairs, the same chairs on 4 different groups. So please reach out to us on the ISG to volunteer.
And the same thing in my case, right? So I try very hard to get shepherds that are not the working group chair. It's demanding, and there is one Andrew in the room that will recognize himself, did a great job, because shepherds are basically a way to learn how the processes works, so you are more confident to accept a working group chair. And you have seen the amount of boss we have the last 2 IETF, meaning creating new working groups where we need new chair. That's really where we all try to get let's say, a senior or experienced chair together with somebody who was maybe a shepherd before. It's simply giving the opportunity to learn on the job, because there is no working group chair school, right, or working group chair universities. You learn it on the job. So if somebody, you see a document, the chair asking for a shepherd, please step forward.
In art, at least, we very much like this whole model of an experienced chair with an inexperienced chair to try to breed new talent so that we don't have the repetition problem that we see. We're already talking about it for some of the BOFs that we held today, where can we get that sort of pairing? Can we identify that sort of pairing? So we're sensitive to the problem, and we're trying to solve it as early in the process as we can.
I can also, just from my side, echo what was said there. And in fact, in one of the working groups that'll be shortly chartered, that's exactly what we've done, a senior pairing with someone who hasn't chaired before, and that way we can raise more people up, rather than just increasing the duplication on people. So I'm very supportive of that model as well.
Okay, let's go to Barry.
This is Barry Leba. I want to sort of tie in Adrian's question and Warren's response to it with Eric's response here, that part of it is that the shepherd who writes up the shepherd write-up and often steps aside and does nothing else should be the one who's following the document through the rest of the process, and should be the one who says, hey, Warren, you dropped this one, what's going on? So this is a word to the shepherds, not a question to the ISG. Please stay active through the rest of the life of the document and make sure things keep moving along and that you unclog things that need it.
Thank you, that's exactly correct. That's the role of the shepherd.
And that's how they learn the process from A to Z.
I've commented on ballots recently that the shepherd write-up, for example, does not get due attention. It's kind of like, let's get this out of the way and just get it done. And that's kind of where we stop hearing from the shepherd. I'm trying to encourage more thorough handling from there.
Any other questions for the IESG? Thank you. That brings us to the IAB.
Meine funktioniert nicht mehr. Schon kaputt. Yeah, so we have a few people remote, but actually let's start with the remote people for a change. Colin, do you want to start?
Yeah, hi. I'm Colin Perkins. I'm the IETF chair.
Robin?
Hi. Chanbin, IAB.
Jen Khan?
健康瑶 IAB.
Great to have you here. We start on this side.
Colin Jennings, IAB.
David Skenazy, Internet Architecture Enthusiast.
Tommy Polly, IAB.
Mallory Nuttall, IAB. Still Mia Kulevin, still IB chair.
Lars Eckert, IETF chair.
Wes Herdeker, my electrician's going to call in the next 5 minutes. I know it.
Jari Arko, IAB.
Jin Wu, IAB.
So the mic is open for questions.
Yeah, Warren Kamari, Google.
David, how are your cookies?
Exactly. David, what did you think of the cookies this time?
You know, I really enjoyed the oatmeal raisin ones today, personally. I had two. I had to stop after that, but maybe there's still some more. I should have had more. I'm sad now.
I didn't have a single cookie, but that's a different story.
I mean, that might be cause for an appeal.
Eric.
So a question for David, if you don't mind, David. What do you think about the coffee?
You know, my general take on coffee is that it keeps me awake, and it did its job. So I don't actually know how to tell what is good coffee or not. But this one kept me awake, which is hard at IETF.
Pretty true.
Thank
So
you.
I had a good friend that has this theory that bad coffee from like, you know, a 7-Eleven or Mini Mart is actually the best way to drive. Because while the caffeine is taking a while to hit in, the bad taste keeps you awake.
You see, the IEP is very busy. This was enough time to actually prep your question, your real question. No?
Well, thank you. That's a great evening. See you tomorrow.
We have somebody.
Hi, Andrew Campling. Looking at the slides and the report, it's quite heavy on the admin sort of content, and there wasn't so much content in the report on sort of the future of the internet. Is that just a sort of timing issue with this particular report, or is that a fair reflection of the balance of work of the IB at the moment, that it's more admin and less on the forward-looking stuff?
So I think that's the format of this report. This report is supposed to report on what we have done between the last meeting and now. That's what we're doing. We use a little bit the IB open meeting to also give you an idea about what we're thinking about in the future. And we have only been using 1 hour for that meeting because we didn't want to take it away from the rest of the session time. So we always are very squeezed on time and very selective on topics.
Just one other comment there. I think that report does include kind of what have we done, is what have we officially produced. So once we have published an IAB technical RFC, then that will show up. In this case, we are working on things, but they were not published yet. But for example, we will have an EDM technical program meeting tomorrow morning here. And there are other documents and discussions going on. There's discussion going on the architecture discuss list. So yeah, there's other stuff you can certainly engage with, and I think we'd love to have all thoughts on the architecture discuss list or in the technical programs.
I do think that, you know, the IEB has a lot of administrative tasks. As we make those appointments, we actually go through lots of interviews and lots of discussions, and they're important. But there are a few things that we have accomplished that we have, you know, that weren't on the slides really. We're forming 2 new workshops coming up, and those will be highly architectural and highly technical. And there's a couple of reports coming out from past workshops and stuff. So we have gotten some technical stuff done too, and we're currently reviewing a number of drafts that have come in, you know, for IAB potential publication on the IAB stream and things like that. But you're right, probably the slides were a little administratively heavy.
Yeah, so in the same vein, I think it's quite easy to report on the admin things, even though we do quite many of those tasks and they are important, but it's easy to list a large number of them. But some of the architectural technical stuff actually takes a while. So as mentioned, there's one workshop that we now announced. There's another one on environmental impacts of the internet and internet applications that's coming up soon. And it takes a while to prepare this. So that's what's happening in the background, and it might be just one slide or one item on a report, but it does take a while.
I'm just looking for the remote people for a second, so give them also a chance. But okay. Any other questions? No? Yay! We're done.
Well, the IB's done, the LLC is up. I think we're just 3 of us here in the room. And I see that We might have some more people online. Hey. Right, so this is us. Let's start with the remote folks. Maya, I see you. Want to say hi? I think you're muted, Maya.
Double muted. Hi.
Now it's good.
Sorry.
Jason Livingood. Sorry, Jason Livingood. Sean Turner.
And Lars Eggert. And why are you sitting so far apart? True, you're smarter than us. I don't know if we have Peter von Roste online. It's late in Europe, so probably couldn't make it. Right, that brings us to the open mic for the LLC. Do we have any questions?
Hello, I'm Stuart Cheshire from Apple. We heard tonight about the IETF endowment, and I've seen the signage outside, which I think is great. I just have one little suggestion for someone to consider, because I see on the website that there's levels like flagship and benefactor and leadership and champion and all these things. And this is very common, a lot of museums and non-profit organizations. And to be very blunt, it's appealing to people's vanity. It's a way of encouraging people to give a bit more money. But the amounts of money are not listed on the webpage. So I don't think it serves the purpose if we actually keep the amount secret. Now, I know it's crass to talk about money, but if we're going to do the fundraising, let's either do it or not do it.
Yeah, I see Lee Berkeley nodding, so I guess your input will be taken into account, Lee Berkeley, right? Great, thank you, Stuart.
So Stuart, I never think it's crass to talk about money because it's kind of a job, right? To make sure we got enough to have these meetings. So thanks for your suggestion.
So what level would Apple be comfortable with, Stuart? Any more questions for the LLC board? Going once? Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.